Hello everyone, how's it going? Now in this video, I will be talking about what it's like living life through the lens of unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance was the missing component for my recovery. I tried everything else. I tried the thoughts of thoughts. I tried the exposures, all the exposures you could do. I tried just the changing my relationship with the anxiety, with the thoughts, with the feelings. I tried focus on a healthy structure for mental health. All helped to a degree. They all were valid, helpful points. But the problem was it didn't quite get under chronic severe OCD. What really got under it was unconditional acceptance of myself, of others, and life, and breaking down the worst case scenario, changing my perspective on that, and all the belief work involved to get to recovery. That was the determining factor to my recovery. So, what is life like through the lens of unconditional acceptance? First of all, there is no fight. There is no fight. There is no internal resistance. There is no pushing feelings away. There is no pushing intrusive thoughts away. In a state of recovery, the intrusive thoughts aren't intrusive. They are just thoughts. You know, I'm human, so I can get any thought. I can have any thought right now. And I don't label it as an intrusive, horrible thought. It's just a thought that comes in and then it goes again. And the reason that's the case is because I'm not fighting with the thought, nor am I conditionally accepting myself for having that thought. And what I mean by that is I am not saying I am no good for having this thought. I am not saying I'm a horrible, bad, wrong person for having such an intrusive thought. So I still have the thoughts. Yes, the frequency has come down drastically and there's no intrusiveness power to it. There's no sort of intruding in like, oh my God, this thought's come in now. Why is it coming now? There is none of that because I'm not fearing the thought. And this is from somebody that was stuck with all the taboo related themes and having all kinds of intrusive thoughts at very unwanted times. During times that you least want them, during times of intimacy, during times when you're trying to focus, during times when you're trying to concentrate. I was having all kinds of intrusive thoughts. Now, my relationship was all wrong with these thoughts because I was pushing them away, I was fighting them because I had no acceptance of the thoughts being there. I had conditional acceptance. I could accept myself without the thoughts, but I couldn't accept myself with the thoughts. So the doubting disorder that I've got, OCD, is going to chuck in those thoughts because I am saying things like, I must not be having these thoughts. I hate these thoughts. These thoughts are terrible. I was catastrophizing these thoughts coming in, and ultimately I was rating myself for having these thoughts. I was saying, because I can't stand these thoughts, and these thoughts are just so unbearable, I'm a terrible person for having these thoughts. So I was getting in that vicious cycle, and I had such a poor relationship with the thoughts, I was actually bringing them on even more, and then getting myself further and further and down the rabbit hole. Okay? So the unconditional acceptance lens, the unconditional acceptance angle is no more fighting with that. Let any thought come in. That's not agreement. Remember, unconditional acceptance isn't agreement. It isn't liking. It isn't wanting. I didn't get to a stage where I wanted thoughts. I didn't get to the stage where I thought, oh, today I fancy having intrusive thoughts. No, of course not. I had to just change my view on them, change my perception on them, and let them come in. Please stop fighting them. I had to surrender. Okay, do your worst. Let them come in. Because as soon as I was resisting them, as soon as I was pushing them away and getting into a battle with them, into a tug of war with them, if you wish, then OCD had me. It had the upper hand. It had me, it had it in its palm of its hand. And no, you can't get out of this now. You're fighting this. So I was going back and forth with it. That wasn't going to work. That was only going to end in one way. And that was tears. That wasn't a great place to be. So I had to drop the resistance, drop the control, and let any thought come in, any feeling come in, any urge, any sensation. So many people that I coach, I ask them, what do you do when you get bombarded with intrusive thoughts or intrusive urges, intrusive sensations, or just the feelings of, you might just feel very anxious or very panicked. And usually, initially on the journey, hopefully not later on in the journey, because they're going to know better with the coaching, but when they first come in, it's usually that fight approach. Get rid. That isn't going to work. You can't escape. You can't distract yourself from OCD. Healthy distractions can be helpful, yes, but you can't just run away from OCD, right? You've got to change your relationship with all the thoughts and the feelings and work with it rather than work against it. And that comes from the stance of unconditional acceptance, because you're accepting life and you're accepting yourself with these symptoms being there. The reason you fight is because you have conditional acceptance towards these sensations and towards these thoughts and towards these feelings, because you are saying, I cannot stand these thoughts, I can't accept these thoughts being there, therefore I need to get rid. That is the opposite of unconditional acceptance. So that is crucial. Unconditional acceptance is crucial. Please stop fighting. How else is unconditional acceptance vital? Unconditional self-acceptance. Now, you are listening to somebody here that was stuck with chronic guilt and shame, with false memory OCD, which linked in with relevant OCD, harm OCD, POCD, driving OCD, cheating OCD, all kinds of themes which can latch to many, by the way. All the guilt and shame can latch to many, not just specific themes, because I'm actually doing a chronic guilt and shame series for our WhatsApp groups that we have here at OCD Recovery. If you are interested in getting involved with one of the WhatsApp groups, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com, and you can also get in touch with one-to-one coaching calls and webinar services. If you email Phil, you have me, Sam, you've got the founder of OCD Recovery, Rob, and you've got Nick, Momin, and Gemma, and you've also got Elliot, who's also starting with one-to-one calls, and you can get in touch with us here, and we can get your recovery journey started, get the wheels turning, build that momentum, and we can direct you and guide you in the right direction towards recovery. Because we've all been there, we've all been stuck with OCD, and all of us here have applied unconditional acceptance. We philosophize unconditional acceptance. We don't just do it, we philosophize it. We think through the lens of unconditional acceptance, which ultimately takes time, but that is often the missing component for your recovery journey, because there is something there that you cannot accept. There's something there that you're still resisting. If you're watching this video thinking, why am I still stuck? I'm doing all the thoughts. I'm not fighting with it anymore. I've changed my relationship, but I'm still stuck. Right, we're gonna have to go deep into unconditional acceptance. So, unconditional self-acceptance, absolutely vital. When I look back at why I was stuck with guilt and shame and all the anxiety and all the taboo related guilt, and if only they knew, and life's over, and this and that, evil person, all that kind of stuff, the way that OCD is just pumping away and targeting all these kind of fears, was because I could not accept myself if this, right? So if I did this thing in the past, I could not accept myself. If this thing happened 5 years ago, I could not accept myself. If I did wrong and broke the law, then I am a bad person, therefore I could not accept myself, I couldn't live with myself, and I deserve to live with guilt and shame, and I can't ever be let off the hook, and I deserve a life of misery, and I can't be happy, I can't enjoy anything. That stems from a conditional self-accepting angle. Unconditional is learning to accept ourselves even if we did do something wrong, even if you had a thought that you liked, even if you did intentionally do something wrong, even if you wanted to do this or wanted to do that. Now, that's not agreement, okay? That's not excusing it. Let's say you're stuck with relevant false memory OCD and you're looking back going, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. That's not just saying, okay, it's fine, don't worry about it. It's, okay, I can acknowledge that behavior might have been wrong. I can acknowledge that I may have made a mistake here. I can acknowledge that I can learn from that behavior, and that behavior was something that I'm not necessarily proud of. However, I can learn to accept myself even with that poor behavior. Okay, and that comes from compassion. That comes from having compassion, letting yourself off the hook, even if you've done wrong. That is not supporting bad behavior. That is not excusing bad behavior. That's not justifying it. But unconditional acceptance is realizing that guilt and shame fixes nothing. Even if I did do something wrong in the past, because remember, with OCD, it doesn't even mean that you've done something wrong. That's not reassurance, but OCD is going to latch to things whether you've done it or not, okay? So look at false memory. It could be something that you even thought about doing and go, nope, you've done it, that's enough for OCD to latch. But also there can be real events. Many people come in with real event OCD and they've actually done something that they deem as wrong in the past. And yet again, it's having that unconditional acceptance of themselves, even with this thing that they've done in the past, and learning to view it differently, learning to view themselves differently, and seeing that the guilt and shame cycle that they're constantly beating themselves up with relentlessly 24/7 is getting them absolutely nowhere. Okay? So seeing that, hey, the much more healthy approach here is looking to accept ourselves even with our poor behavior, and not liking it, not excusing it, and regretting that, but looking to move forward, looking to rebuild, even if you did do something wrong in the past. And that comes from compassion, that comes from self-respect, that comes from self-acceptance, accepting ourselves even if, okay? Conditional is accepting ourselves only when. Unconditional is accepting ourselves unconditionally, even if we have done something wrong in the past. And that is not saying you can just let yourself do anything you want. No, okay? No, not at all. You can do things and you can regret those things, and you can do all you can not to repeat those things and look to learn from that poor behavior to not do the same thing that you regret. That's how you're going to do that through the lens of unconditional acceptance. But if you're just beating yourself up entirely, boom, 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 entirely, relentlessly, over and over again, you're going to feel so shit, and you're going to feel so guilty and feel so ashamed, you're probably not going to give a shit about changing your poor behavior, because you're going to hate yourself, right? You're going to be so depressed, you're not going to have any motivation to change, and who knows, that could even lead to a spiral. It might even lead to suicide, right? Which, of course, you don't want to be going down that route and don't want to be going down that path, because that always just stems from conditional acceptance and writing yourself off forever, and that solves nothing. Okay, so unconditional self-acceptance really got OCD to unlatch from the severe, chronic, guilt-related themes. Even if you've done something wrong, even if you wanted an intrusive thought, even if you acted out on an urge, even if you harmed somebody else, even if you went to jail, even if you were rejected. Okay, it's hard to get to. And book number 3 on our reading list, The Myth of Self-Esteem, is excellent for breaking this down. Unconditional acceptance, and how self-esteem is the greatest emotional disturbance known to humans, because it's all right when things are going well, but when things aren't going well and you make a mistake and you do something wrong and you did something bad or you did something that you regret, then you think, oh shit, my self-esteem is so low, and then you're going to be swarmed by all negative emotions that you don't like, and all the unhealthy emotions such as guilt, shame, panic, depression, and so on, which isn't healthy for anybody. So unconditional self-acceptance is absolutely crucial when it comes to OCD and guilt and shame. Unconditional other acceptance, absolutely vital for anger. Okay, if you're finding yourself quite angry towards things, maybe somebody has different political beliefs to you, maybe somebody has different religious beliefs to you, maybe somebody just views things differently, maybe it's one of their actions, maybe it's just how they view the world, maybe it's something that they've done. If you're finding you're very angry, if you're finding you want to get revenge constantly, if you're feeling very sort of rageful towards them, and you're feeling like you're not sort of prioritizing your own goals, because you're maybe just filled with anger and maybe just quite frustrated and annoyed by lots and lots of things, that usually comes from a conditional other acceptance. So you're only accepting them if they do what you say, kind of thing. So I only accept them if they don't do this, if they don't think like that. Well, that's not true, because unconditional other acceptance stems from accepting them even with their beliefs, even with their behaviours that you don't agree with. And the compassion angle comes from seeing why they've done that, seeing why they think that, with all the factors involved, all the genetic factors, all the environmental factors, all the influential factors as to why they think what they do. That's not agreement. Yet again, if somebody has very different political beliefs to you, you don't have to then agree with their political beliefs to then accept them. That's not true. You can strongly disagree with their views on things, but learn to accept them as a human and them as an individual, because you're seeing, right, they're thinking like that because of this. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you're just trying to make more sense of it. You're trying to make understanding of it. You're trying to have compassion for them and have acceptance for them, whilst strongly condemning, disliking, disagreeing with whatever they think or what they've done. Another good one for this is looking at somebody that maybe you disagree with their actions. Maybe they're a criminal and they've done something wrong. Trying to have compassion, trying to have understanding, while strongly condemning their actions. Okay, not saying that you're not excusing their actions. You're not saying, oh, it's fine. You're just looking at all the factors involved as to what led them to do such a thing. And that comes from looking at life through their eyes, looking at how they view the world, what they've been through, their culture, their upbringing, all their experiences, how they view things. Sort of all the kinds of influences that can play a part in why humans do what they do, their brain wiring, the brain genetics, all the kind of things. And we'll get into this a lot deeper in one-to-one calls and webinars when we look to break this down, because otherwise, if you don't have compassion and acceptance and understanding, you're going to find it very hard to have it for yourself, leading you're probably going to remain in a guilt and shame cycle. That's always a good one, looking at why people do what they do, whilst not agreeing with it. Okay, just looking at acceptance and compassion at other humans isn't then just saying it's fine, do what you want to do, I don't give a shit, yeah, I agree with everything. No, you can strongly stand your ground and be firm and disagree with something and have your own beliefs and have your own views. That's fine, but always try and look at it through the lens of unconditional other acceptance, accepting them and why they do what they do, even if you disagree with it. That's very important, and that's going to bring down the rage, it's going to bring down the anger, it's going to bring down all the unhealthy negative feelings that you're going to feel there, the jealousy, the bitterness and so on, the irritable feelings and so on. And unconditional life acceptance. As I started recovering from OCD, you get better at just dealing with problems, okay? Your mindset gets better. You become more robust at dealing with problems. You get very good at just going towards obstacles and overcoming them, rather than whining, rather than complaining, understanding the realities and hardships of life and not focusing your energy and your attention on things you can't change and things you can't control. Okay, so understanding that life owes you nothing, that you're not entitled to anything, that just because you want something doesn't mean that you get it, dropping all those demands, saying, oh, life shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't be this unfair, the world shouldn't be like that. It is what it is. The life and the universe is what it is. Stop demanding things. Stop saying, well, I deserve this or they deserve that, because the world isn't listening. So when you have unconditional life acceptance, you're accepting life and its conditions for what it is, not liking them, yet again, not agreeing with them, not wanting them. You know, if I was put in a very harsh condition, I'm not going to like that. I'm going to do all I can to change that. But I mean, if I couldn't change that, I'd have to learn to accept living in poor life conditions and adjust, adapt, rebuild, try and get to a stage where I don't see it as bad as it is, try and sort of change my view on it. That's all I could do. But I couldn't just sit there and say, life shouldn't be like this, it's just so unfair, why have I got to deal with this? Because that isn't going to solve nothing, okay? And ultimately, that's going to lead to me feeling very emotionally disturbed, very depressed, being in a very low mood, because I'm demanding that life mustn't be this way. Well, it is. Okay, look at the natural disasters that happen, look at crimes that go on, look at the wars that happen, look at things that just don't go your way. None of these things would happen if life owed us anything, okay? So it's just accepting the realities of life whilst not liking them, and if you can do something about it, then great. Please do all you can to change unfortunate events, to change unfortunate conditions, to change unfortunate circumstances. Please do all you can, but a big part of it is learning to accept life and all the realities of it, okay? And stop trying to control things that are out of our control. Stop trying to control the uncontrollable. That's not going to work. Just because you want something doesn't mean then you're entitled to it, and realizing that life isn't listening to you and the universe owes you nothing. And that's not like a very pessimistic way of looking at things, because I'm a very optimistic person. I do have a lot of optimism, but I also have a lot of realism. Okay, because when you've suffered from OCD, you're very realistic about things, because you've had suffering. Each day felt like I was drowning. Each day felt like I was living in a torturous mental battle 24/7. felt like just keeping my head above water was the biggest task. So I had to realize that, hey, you know, if life owed me anything, I wouldn't have had OCD, right? I wouldn't have suffered from OCD. And you realize that, hang on a minute, my lessons from OCD are valuable. And I'm so lucky for having OCD because it's taught me so much. So it's just accepting the hardships of life whilst not liking them. Okay, yet again, acceptance is an agreement. And that's crucial, okay? So that's what life is like through the lens of unconditional acceptance. There is no fighting, there is no battling, there is no resisting things, there is no pushing things away. It's just letting yourself feeling anything, the free-flowing state, and ultimately changing your view on yourself with unconditional self-acceptance, changing your view on others with the compassion, understanding, the empathy, the sympathy, whilst condemning or not liking or disagreeing whatever other people can do, and just accepting the realities of the world and how it happens and why it happens, but ultimately looking to think, well, there's not much I can do, so I have to learn to accept it and adapt to it and adjust to it and rebuild and do what I can in this circumstance I'm in. I always think, I'm going to leave you on this, I always think whatever I go through, what can I do about it? Okay, victimizing myself, whining, complaining, moaning solves nothing at all. I always think, what is in my control? What can I change? And whatever I can't control, whatever I can't change, I have to learn to accept and roll with it and adapt to it. Otherwise, I'm going to live a life full of misery because I'll be trying to change things I can't change. Then I'll be feeling feelings of anger, depression, guilt and shame, anxiety, panicking about things not going my way, panicking about being stuck like this forever and trying to just sort of fight everything and resisting everything, or that isn't going to end well, okay? So learning to accept ourselves even with OCD, learning to accept ourselves even when we can't accept, learning to accept ourselves even when we're acting irrationally, and learning to accept ourselves even when we're not yet recovered and while striving for recovery, okay? That is absolutely crucial. Life has changed dramatically for me for the better ever since I've fully philosophized unconditional acceptance. It's completely changed my life. It's completely changed my suffering. There is no suffering because the internal framework that OCD was thriving on previously has gone, has been deconstructed. So OCD doesn't have that power, because anything that it was latching to for me was something that I couldn't accept, whether it's something that I've done or I thought or I've had the image of, or whatever it was OCD was latching to, the worst case scenario, whatever it may be, or whether it was somebody else and sort of feeling anger towards them, or whether it was just a life condition. It all just stemmed from a lack of acceptance, a conditional acceptance point of view. I had to adjust that. I had to adapt a new philosophy and embody unconditional acceptance for OCD to fully unlatch. Book number 3 in our reading list is super helpful for this, The Myth of Self-Esteem, and that'll help you break it down. And if you are interested in one-to-one coaching calls, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com and we can start looking to coach and teach you unconditional self-acceptance, other acceptance, and life acceptance, which will help dramatically for your OCD recovery and stopping that internal resistance to all the feelings and all the thoughts coming in. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.